The characteristics of the hydraulic system of the four-roller crusher. The general roller crusher is equivalent to a pair of rollers driven by a motor. A crushing cavity is formed between the two rollers. The material is discharged after the roller gap is crushed. It is mainly used for brittleness with low hardness. Materials, such as coke, raw coal, sinter, etc. The four rollers of the four-roller crusher are divided into upper and lower groups and are used in pairs. The upper roller is used for coarse braking, and the lower roller is used for fine braking. One of each pair of rollers is fixed to the frame, and the bearing seats at the two ends of the other roller are respectively fixed to the two hydraulic cylinders and can be placed on the slide of the frame. Move inside to realize the adjustment of the roll gap. According to the requirements of the host for the hydraulic system, the hydraulic system should have the following characteristics. It can quickly eliminate the jamming of the crushing chamber and the stalling accident. When the uneven distribution of the fabric causes uneven load, the system should have the ability to self-correction so that the roll gap tends to be uniform and reduce the lateral load of the hydraulic cylinder. Through the synchronized movement of a pair of hydraulic cylinders, the size of the discharge port can be adjusted sensitively and reliably, and at the same time it can accurately reflect the adjustment amount of the discharge port. When the non-crushed material enters the crushing cavity or the crusher is overloaded due to unexpected reasons, the system can quickly discharge the hydraulic oil in the hydraulic cylinder to achieve a safety effect. After the cause of the overload is eliminated, the hydraulic cylinder can immediately automatically return to its normal working position. When running under load, the system can maintain pressure for a long time to ensure that the crusher has sufficient crushing force and stable discharge port size. The working principle of the hydraulic system of the four-roller crusher. First, the principle of hydraulic insurance. Due to the closed oil circuit, during normal operation, under the action of the crushing force, the discharge port is kept within the adjusted value, and the hydraulic system pressure can reach about 5 MPa storage ace inflation pressure to maintain the required crushing force. If non-crushed material enters or other accidents occur, the discharge port will increase. The hydraulic cylinder will return to oil under pressure, and the pressure will increase sharply. When it exceeds MPa, the airbag of the accumulator is compressed, and the oil discharged from the hydraulic cylinder quickly enters the accumulator through the check valve of the check valve 9. When the non-broken objects are eliminated or the cause of the accident is eliminated, the airbag buffers the oil through the throttle valve and presses it back to the hydraulic cylinder to reset the roller. In the event of a mine blockage accident, non-crushed materials cannot be excluded, and when the system pressure is higher than the adjustment value of the relief valve 5, the hydraulic oil in the system flows back to the tank through the valve, protecting the host and the hydraulic system from damage due to excessive pressure. These are the biggest features or advantages that are different from mechanical spring ring insurance. Roll gap adjustment principle. Before adjustment, except for the closing of the shut-off valve 11, the other shut-off valves are all open. After the manual reversing valve is operated to push the roller forward and backward freely, the roller gap can be adjusted. The upper and lower rollers should be adjusted separately. Rotation switch cut-off valve review. Generally, the lower roller is adjusted first. First, pull the roller to leave a larger gap. Put a steel plate that needs to adjust the gap between a pair of rollers. Operate the manual directional valve to push the roller. When the roller clamps the steel plate, and the pressure on the pressure gauge suddenly increases suddenly, it is immediately manipulated. The directional valve 4 stops supplying oil to the system and stops the pump, and then closes the shut-off valves 6 and 12 to close the system. Then open the shut-off valve 11, rotate the roller to take out the steel plate, and the roll gap adjustment is completed. Improve the principle of partial load, as mentioned above. The pressure increase of the hydraulic system during work is not caused by the hydraulic pump supplying oil to the system, but caused by the crushing force applied by the roller to the hydraulic cylinder. When a hydraulic cylinder is retracted by a large sudden crushing force, the roll gap at this end tends to increase. Since the cylinder chambers and rodless chambers of each pair of hydraulic cylinders intersect with each other, when one of the hydraulic cylinder pistons retreats, the discharged oil enters the rod chamber of the other hydraulic cylinder. so that the other hydraulic cylinder piston also moves backward. The tendency of the roll gap increases, so that the two hydraulic cylinders can achieve synchronous operation and maintain a uniform roll gap. Solving the problem of the speed of the cone crushing maneuver cone and the parts that will affect the speed of the cone crushing maneuver cone are the key to solving the anomaly of the cone crushing maneuver cone. When the cone crushing motor cone is abnormal, the cone crusher should be shut down and repaired at the first time to eliminate possible failures. At the same time, the cone crusher main shaft should be thoroughly cleaned and enough lubricant should be added to ensure the cone crushing motor the lubricity between the cone bush and the main bearing of the cone crusher is good, which can reduce the adverse effects caused by friction. If the spherical bearing of the cone crusher is found to be damaged, it needs to be replaced immediately. If the cone crusher is replaced with a new moving cone, then the cone crusher motor cone bushing gap must also be adjusted to maintain a certain air gap to avoid the collision of parts caused by the cone crusher during operation. Cone speed is abnormal. After the replacement process of the cone crusher is completed, it needs to be adjusted and tested for a short time to ensure that the components of the cone crushing motor cone operate normally. The maintenance content of the cone crusher motor cone includes that if the contact between the cone crusher main shaft and the cone crusher sleeve wears more than 3 mm or if the cone crusher main shaft is cracked, the cone crusher main shaft should be replaced immediately. When the part of the lower O-ring of the cone crushing motorized cone body wears more than half of the ring height, the steel plate shall be repaired in time. When the spherical surface of the body of the cone crusher or the contact point between the lower end of the body cone surface and the lining plate exceeds 4 mm, the body of the cone crusher should be replaced immediately. After a period of time, the rollers of the 4-roll crusher and the raw material yard have not been uniformly distributed along the length of the rollers due to the operator. The roller surface interruption will cause more wear, less wear at both ends, concave in the middle, and curling at both ends at this time. The gap between the two rollers is not linear, forming a concave shape with a large gap between the two ends, and there is a small part of the tip contact at both ends of the roller. Especially the feed belt width above the 4-roll crusher is only 800 mm, and the width of the roller reaches 1000 mm. And the roller receives material in the middle, so it is easy to form a concave shape in the middle. In order to ensure the granularity of the discharge, the operator moved the roller blindly. At this time, the two ends of the two rollers have formed a rigid squeeze, and the discharge speed has not improved much, so that the contact between the two roller skins is too strong. The situation is that the cyclic asymmetric impact may also cause the main shaft to bend and break, or even damage other components. Judgment of the wear of the jaw crusher shaft. If there is little wear of the jaw crusher shaft, just turn it on the lathe to repair its geometry, so that the jaw crusher journal reaches the correct geometry, and then reduce the bearing accordingly the inside diameter of. However, if the journal size of the jaw crusher is reduced by 5% compared with the original, it can no longer be turned, and the new shaft of the jaw crusher should be replaced. Judgment of the wear of the bearing of the jaw crusher. Because the jaw crusher works under impact load, the working period of the babbitt lining on the bearing bush is about 2 years. Once the time limit is exceeded, it needs to be recast. When the babbitt alloy on the bush of the jaw crusher has deep peeling or large scratches, it should be recast. The bearing bush processed by the jaw crusher should ensure the quality. The color of the babbitt alloy surface should be uniform, matte, silvery white, and the surface layer does not run with slag, cracks, sand holes, shrinkage holes and shelling phenomena. Judgment of the wear of the eccentric shaft of the jaw crusher. If the eccentric shaft and bush of the jaw crusher are worn, and the top gap is greater than 1.5 times the original assembly gap, pad adjustment or replacement is required. Judgment of the wear of the oil groove of the jaw crusher. The oil groove wears ideal, then the oil groove should be reopened or adjusted. When the gap between the upper cover of the connecting rod head of the jaw crusher and the eccentric shaft is worn to more than ideal times the assembly gap, it is also necessary to add pads to adjust or replace with new ones.